I was born and raised here in Pennsylvania, so there are certainly things about homes in other parts of the country that I don't know much about. But same thing with if you're moving from another part of the country or even another part of the world to Pennsylvania, then there are certainly things about homes here that you don't know much about. And that's what this video is all about. Hey there, I'm Corey Benhart. I'm a local realtor here in Pennsylvania, and I specialize in helping people move to the great state of PA to find their perfect Pennsylvania home. All of my contact information is below. Let's get started. Starting with the first thing that most people don't tell you about when it comes to homes in Pennsylvania is the radon gas. Radon is a gas that is released from the soil through the natural process of rocks and soil breaking down over time. Since this process occurs underground, it is likely that that gas will come through the basement. That's why most radon tests are tested down in the basement. Luckily, low levels of radon are not harmful, but when it comes to higher levels above a certain threshold, that's when it comes to be harmful and have long-term effects such as lung cancer. Radon gas is both invisible and cannot be smelled either, so it's very important to have your basement tested for radon. The EPA has guidelines for where radon gas becomes harmful. If a home's radon levels come out to be 4 or higher, that's when they suggest putting in a radon mitigation system that kind of works like a big fan and sucks the radon out from the basement and pushes it outside. I have had a lot of clients have to install radon mitigation systems, and it's truly really not that big of a deal. It's only a big deal if you were to have radon and not do anything about it. That's when it could be potentially very, very harmful. Once a radon mitigation is installed, home inspectors typically suggest to have that system tested every couple of years just to make sure that it's still working. The cost to install a mitigation system really depends on the size of the home and the location. Typically, I've seen them range anywhere from $800 to right around $1,200. The next thing that you might not know about Pennsylvania is the different types of roofing that we have here. The most common roofing material in Pennsylvania is called an asphalt shingle. They have a life expectancy of around 20 to 30 years and are the most common and cost-effective option that you'll see here in PA. Depending on where you're moving from, you might be used to homes having clay roofs, such as in more of a desert and dry environment, but we certainly do not have clay roofs here in Pennsylvania because we get way too much rain and snow here. And now for Pennsylvania homes that are more on the historic side, we also have roofs that are called slate roof. I recently had an out-of-state family purchase a home here in Pennsylvania, and that home had a slate roof, and they've never seen one before. Slate roofing was very popular until around the 1940s. Each piece of the roof is an individual piece of slate, which is great because if you have a leak or if one of the slates crack, you can replace that individual piece. Probably the most special thing about slate roofs is that they have a life expectancy of between 50 and 100 years because a thick piece of slate takes quite a long time to wear down. The two other most common types of roofing that we have here is metal and flat roofs. If you're buying a row home in, let's say, Philadelphia, it's likely that you'll have a flat roof. Most of the homes in Philadelphia that are not new construction have a flat roof. And for metal roofing, I'm seeing this type of roofing more and more nowadays, but mostly on homes that have to replace their roof or for homes that are new construction. But most of the time, they're not putting a metal roof on the entire house, just on portions of it for more of an accent. For example, here's a home that has shingles with a part of the roof as a metal roof, and in my opinion, they look great together. No matter what type of roof is on the house that you love, I would always suggest to get it inspected, or if I'm your realtor, ask me and I would be happy to help you figure out the age of the roof. I recently had a client that purchased a home and the seller advised that the roof was brand new, which is great, but upon further inspection, we noticed there was quite a few leaking marks on the upstairs ceiling, and in fact, the roof was brand new, but the seller installed it himself and completely did it wrong. So unfortunately, that brand new roof had to be completely torn off, and luckily the seller was able to pay for it. If you're replacing a roof on your home before you sell it, or if you need to replace the roof on a home here in Pennsylvania, please make sure to hire a professional instead of doing it yourself. So I often hear my clients that are moving from out of state always tell me that we are only considering a house that is public water and public sewer, and they are very firm on that. Private utilities such as a septic system or a well can have a bad reputation sometimes if you have heard from friends or family that have had to replace their systems. If you aren't familiar with private utilities, instead of obtaining your water from a public water plant and flushing to a large sewer facility, you're obtaining the water from a well below your property and flushing to a separate tank underground. Depending on where you're moving from, private utilities might not be very common, but here in Pennsylvania, there's about 25% of homes that function on both private septic and private private water. The reason that these utility systems have such bad reputation is that some people, when buying a home, don't have these systems tested, which just blows my mind because replacing these systems can be quite costly and a huge deal. Water well systems typically last between 30 and 50 years, and septic systems can last up to around 25 to 30 years. Private water and septic systems are most common in homes that have tons of land or homes that are very far away from a city or a town. Buying a home with one of these systems is not a big deal whatsoever. Just please have them tested before you purchase your home. So now let's talk about basements, because there's a lot of buyers that are very confused about Pennsylvania basements because basements aren't very common in other parts of the country. Some buyers require that their new home has to have a basement, whether it's finished or unfinished. But we have different types of basements because besides finished and unfinished, we also have cellars, which are small, dark, and aren't really meant to be finished. Basement cellars don't really have much use other than accessing some of the home's systems, such as an HVAC system and a hot water heater. But on the other hand, there are plenty of homes that have beautifully finished basements that are used as additional living space, a home gym, an office, a playroom, a theater, or really anything else that you can imagine. From all of the homes that I have both sold and been in, not many homes here in Pennsylvania don't have basements. So if you definitely do not want a basement here in Pennsylvania, it's possible, but just know that it might take a little bit longer because basements are very common here in PA. Another thing that not many people mention about houses here in Pennsylvania is that some homes use oil heat. I would say that there's probably around 20% of homes that still have or have ever had oil heating here. If you've never lived in Pennsylvania, New York, or New England, it's likely that you aren't familiar with oil heat because those three areas are the most popular throughout the entire country for using oil heat. Oil heat is essentially filling up a gas tank for your house. A couple of times a year, you have to have an oil truck come and fill up your tank, and that's how you heat your home and get hot water. You won't find oil heat in any newly constructed homes, and homes that have once had oil heat is very likely that they converted to natural gas because natural gas is much more efficient. Overall, it is much more affordable and overall just a cleaner heating source. Oil can be extremely expensive because it's based on the general price of oil, and if we have a very cold winter, you can definitely expect to spend a couple of $1,000s just on oil costs alone, and that obviously depends on the size of the house and what temperature you keep your house at. Another thing to talk about is I hear a lot of out-of-state clients come to PA and say that we need to buy a home with a pool. We would not consider a home without a pool. We want an in-ground pool and with a spa or jacuzzi as well. If you're moving from a state that most homes have in-ground pools because you don't have all four seasons, trust me, Pennsylvania is much different. Honestly, I have more buyers that say that they do not want to consider a home that has a pool than buyers that say that they want a pool. Pools in Pennsylvania aren't very useful because we have all four seasons throughout the year, so you can really only use the pool for 2 to 3 months, even if it's heated. So all of the effort and the money that it takes to maintain a pool is not really worth it because you can only use it for a very short amount of time throughout the year here in Pennsylvania. Most homeowners just don't want to bother with it because it's a lot more cost effective to just not have a pool at all and maybe go to a public pool or go to a friend's house that has a pool, as opposed to everything that you need to maintain a pool just for a couple of months throughout the year. Now that you know all of the key things to keep an eye on when home searching here in Pennsylvania, if it's time for you to purchase your home here in PA or close to it, please reach out. I would love to help you find your perfect Pennsylvania home. All of my contact information is below, and until then, I will see you over on this next video.